Hey, I'm Russ.
And I'm Steve.
Growing up in the 80s, we were introduced to video games, movies, and technology that made a lasting impression on us and forever enriched our lives.
I think I'm gonna cry.
It's been a fascinating journey to be a part of, one that we constantly treasure.
Higher, booty.
Our goal is simple: share our magical moments of discovery and geek out with lovely folks, just like you.
Achievement unlocked.
So if you crave pixel goodness, memorable moments, and experiences that make your inner child do the happy dance, you've come to the right place.
Let's do this.
Welcome to Joygasm.
Ah, yeah.
What has happened is a colossal military disaster. We shall go on to the end. We shall never surrender.
The call went out. We have to go to Dunkirk. Ready on the stern line.
What are you doing? You know where we're going.
Into war, George.
I'll be useful, sir.
One of ours.
He's on me.
I'm on him.
The ship's about to leave.
Down you go.
They need to send more ships. Every hour the enemy pushes closer. They've activated the civilian boats. Civilians? We need destroyers. Where are we going?
Dunkirk.
I'm not going back. If we go, they will die. You're weekend sailors, not the bloody Navy.
Should be at home. There's no hiding from this, son. We have a job to do. Turn it around!
We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender. We shall never surrender.
Where's the bloody Air Force?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Joygasm, where we talk about video games, movies, and pop culture. My name is Russ, Xbox Live Toaster 360, and joining me is my squeezable sibling Steve, Xbox Live Stevavitch, as we begin episode 28 on this July 26th, 2017. If you have any questions, comments, or just want to show us some love, you can find us on Twitter at JoygasmTV and Facebook.com/JoygasmTV. You can also listen to us on SoundCloud at SoundCloud.com/JoygasmTV or search Joygasm TV on YouTube. And no matter which platform you use to consume the show, please drop us a subscription, thumbs up, or a review. It helps us build awareness, which we appreciate very much. And a big thank you to those who have done so already. Today, our show will focus solely on the Christopher Nolan film Dunkirk, which you just heard at the beginning of the program. Steve, how you doing?
Well, Russ, I'm lost in thought. I feel like I'm still on the beach, but not the California beach.
No, not the Hawaiian beach.
Not the Hawaiian beach
With a Mai Tai.
No. not the relaxation and sniffing the salty air and the saltwater taffy. Yeah, no. How are you?
I am good. I am in that mode of processing. For those of you listening, we decided to see it properly in IMAX for the full experience, which was actually kind of nice to kind of check out the upgrades that the theater has gone through. I actually have not been to an IMAX film in quite some time. So everything was new. All the seats were nice and leathery, plenty of large gulp cup holders in there.
Indeed.
And had these very sexy looking IMAX signs on both sides of the walls.
Plenty of space, Russ.
Tons of space. Yeah. So that was definitely nice. But yeah, I'm feeling, what's the word? Pensive, I suppose. Just reflective. Maybe reflective is a better
reflective,
word.
yes.
But yeah, I figure we can begin by giving our high level impressions like we always do of the film, and then drill down into the following categories, which are cast/acting, plot, script, cinematography, soundtrack, and costume design. So from a high level standpoint, I think I'll begin. I was surprised by the overall presentation of the film. The trailer was absolutely phenomenal. Just by itself, even if I never ever saw the movie, just the whoever edited that together did a stupendous job. I mean, it was just really well done. So it was interesting to go into the film and actually go through the storytelling through the genius of Christopher Nolan, because I felt like at a high level, it felt a little bit of a departure from what I was expecting the film to actually consist of in terms of pacing and the focus. Not to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, but just I found myself kind of going, okay, when I was sitting there in the chair. What about you?
Similar. I walked in the theater thinking that I'm going to compare this to Saving Private Ryan, or this is going to be the next Saving Private Ryan, and that's my all-time favorite war movie. And this definitely took a different direction, but not a bad direction. More of a, oh snap! Well, they're going to put us right here. Okay, well that works. Wow. So at the same time, that was not a disappointment, but definitely an experience and a half. I felt that the film didn't try to be this Oscar-worthy, award-winning performance like no one's grandstanding and whatnot, but I was thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because this is a history lesson, and this is something. It's definitely sobering. This is a sobering history lesson.
Sure.
I think a lot of folks should see it. They definitely make you feel like you're a part of it. It's in your face. There's a lot to like about the film.
Yeah, it's definitely a sobering film. So make sure that you're in the right frame of mind when you go see it, because you're not going to be walking out of the theater necessarily all sunshine and rainbows. But no, I totally agree. I think that folks owe it to themselves to check it out. It is something that I personally was not really aware of until the film came out. When I was going to the various history classes, they tend to focus on other parts of World War II and that sort of thing. But yeah.
I was thankful to see it in IMAX. Way thankful. I couldn't imagine seeing it on a regular screen. I mean, if you have no other choice, there's no IMAX close to you, then yeah, definitely go see it in the theater. Hopefully with a good sound system, because man, there was booming woofers in that theater. I don't know if it was just because we went to see it at right before dinner and no one was really there or what, but I just felt all that thumping of the airplanes and the explosions. And
I believe it made $50 million over the weekend. It was #1 at the box office.
Yeah.
I think that we came at a sweet spot. where it's just people were getting off work and therefore it just wasn't filled up. And I was actually kind of happy about that. That's kind of cool. Maybe it's just me getting a little older in life. And I'm just like, you know what? I kind of like a little space. Although I will say there are certain theatrical events that transpire, such as Star Wars, where it is really fun to have the whole place sold out and you can feel the
true.
energy from the
Well, yeah,
crowd.
I mean, that's, totally different.
Yeah.
You got a full fan base hoopling and hollering and looking forward to Star Wars. But this, I mean, you just have history buffs. Not going to be hoopling and hollering and doing cosplay and,
Right.
gesturing in the film.
Exactly. Yeah, one of the things I was surprised about was the duration or length of the film, because I was looking it up and I was surprised the film is only an hour and 47 minutes.
Yeah.
And so going into it, I was thinking, man, this is not going to last very long. However, after sitting through the film and walking out of the theater, it felt like a 3-hour movie.
No, it did.
And I think that was a testament to just how intense the film was. You walk out of there and you feel like you were a part of a lot of what the British British soldiers had to go through.
They did have shoulders, though.
They did, yes. British shoulders are very handsome. Very
Indeed.
nice. So anyway, did you have any other high-level thoughts about the film overall, or shall we begin to drill down into the film?
I liked all the practical effects. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could see in the trailer that they're on the beach. They're using real planes.
Yep.
I mean, I am very grateful for that in this world of CGI. They can go back to practical effects, and I'm very grateful. I think that was even shot on the beach of Dunkirk, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was refreshing to be able to see a film where it takes a much more practical approach to everything.
Yeah.
And I think it lends itself well also to just the period piece of the film. The whole thing took place in the 1940s. And so as a result, it felt that much more tangible to me, just because things back in the day were a lot more simple. You had no computers, you had no cell phones. The actual telephone itself also was just pretty new. It was not around for very long. And so just seeing things that were just much more just metal and bolts and
rattles.
Yeah, levers and switches and just
The antiquity of it all.
Yeah, I really did appreciate that a lot. So, well, I say we step into the spoiler-free elevator, Steve, just to let folks decide if they want to be able to continue listening to the spoiler version of this podcast or not. In fact,
I'll step in here and push the doors closed, Russ. Don't jump in the elevator this time, please. It makes me nervous.
I'll do my best.
This elevator needs maintenance.
It does.
But the speakers are good.
Speakers are very good. I like all the mirrors.
Yes.
Allows me to check out my bald spot in all the right
Yeah,
places.
I can see my backside from the front side.
I think that's enough time for folks to be able to make up their mind whether or not they want to listen to the spoiler version of the podcast. So moving right along into the category of cast/acting. This is something that I was actually pleasantly surprised about. A large portion of the cast are made up of individuals that I have no idea who they are. I've never seen them before, but that's not a bad thing. It actually, I think, acted as a strength for the film, because I had no idea how to place these people other than them being in this time period. And so that's a wonderful thing. I think that's, again, not to shoehorn Star Wars into this, but I think that's one of the big successes of Star Wars, the original trilogy, was that it was made up of actors that no one had seen before. I think if you had people who were recognizable, then it just for some reason just wouldn't work. So I did enjoy that. I also really enjoyed how the more notable actors more popular actors, such as like Tom Hardy, for instance. He had kind of more of a backseat secondary role in this whole film, even though it was still a pivotal role. I thought that was actually refreshing because I'm so conditioned as a moviegoer to, like, if I see some sort of bigger name or recognizable name, I'm just conditioned to automatically think, oh, well, that person's clearly going to have the lion's share of the scenes. And that just really wasn't the case for this. And also it's the same thing goes with, and I can't remember the actor's name, but he played Scarecrow in Batman Begins.
Yeah. It was cool to see him in this too.
It was cool to have him come back. I'm going to actually go ahead and give me while you're giving me your impression of the cast and the acting and whatnot, I'm going to try and find out this guy's name.
Well, as far as the cast, I mean, there's a ton of extras. I think I was reading on IMDb that there was like 1,500 extras, 1,500 to 3,000.
Oh, wow. Which
is a ton. Yeah, I didn't recognize a whole lot of people in it, and I'm with you that's A-okay with me. One thing, if I could be a little critical, is that, and this is a good thing and it's not so good thing. So I can take it or leave it. I thought everybody did a great job acting, but there was no in depth with any sort of character. Mm-hmm. But if I go back to Tom Hardy, I was very thankful that they were going back to him in a sense that he felt like home to me in a way, because that was the only thing I was familiar with in the film.
Was Tom Hardy?
It may sound kind of weird like that, but I didn't recognize any of the soldiers on the beach, and I didn't recognize any of the soldiers on the boats in the water. But I recognized Tom Hardy, and I saw Tom Hardy's character as like the guardian angel, you know? And so whenever I saw him in the plane, I thought, okay, I can be comfortable here because he exuded a lot of confidence. He knew his plane, he knew the territory, he could dogfight. He was a very, you could tell that he could size up the situation and choose the best case scenario. And even the causes or the actions of his choosing or the outcomes, he could weigh all that. And so whenever it switched to a different storyline for a different character, or if we go back to the dock or we go to the ships, I thought, okay, they might get shot, they might get bombed, someone else might get tossed in the water. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. But as soon as it went back to Tom Hardy, I thought, okay, I'm safe. I don't know if that makes any sense, but in my mind, it made total sense.
Yeah, I don't know if I felt safe whenever he was in there, but I do agree that seeing him as a recognizable face, I did feel a bit more safe, like what you're talking about, safer than a lot of these other folks, which is interesting. Kenneth Branagh was also in the film as I believe he was like some sort of admiral or commander or high-ranking officer in the British Army, and his role also was small. Yeah, that's what I think is so. Once again, I've said it before, but just it's so refreshing is that all of these like heavy hitter names actually played more secondary roles, and the main cast were made up of actors who I've never seen before.
He was the villain in Wild Wild West, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
I recognized him from Swing Kids too, back in the day, also set in the 40s, but he was on the German side in that film. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm glad he was in this one. He did good too, as far as the small role that he had.
Yeah, I just thinking about it, I'm hard pressed to think of anyone else, and I apologize. I can't find this other actor from Batman Begins. I can't remember his name.
The father figure in the boat, that little weekend fishing boat that we always went back to.
I found it. Sorry, Cillian Murphy is his name.
And who's that?
He was the soldier who the civilians picked up in the boat and was all catatonic due to
shell shocked.
Yeah, due to the U-boat taking out his ship, and he was trying to get the civilians to turn the boat around. He was also Dr. Crane in Batman Begins. Anyway,
right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I forgot where I was going with that. Thanks a lot.
I was determined to find out what his name is.
Yeah, I forgot what I was saying. Thanks a lot.
Take that.
I know what I was going to say. So the father figure that was in the boat with the two boys, he did a great job too. You don't know how these people were before this event took place. He could have been a family man. He could have been a lively guy, but he knew his purpose, and you could see it in his eyes. And he acted that very, very well, even with the small lines that he had, and acting natural. You could see it even in the trailer. I mean, we got a job to do. I mean, this is not going to be fun. This is not going to be easy. We might not come out of this, but this is what we have to do. We have to do this.
Yeah, the actor's name is Mark Rylance. It's either Rylance or Rylance, but yeah, I think that he did a really wonderful job as that civilian type of role, just because he evoked this sense of civic duty.
Yeah.
And you could see the conviction in his face. Like, this is something that he just feels or felt compelled to do as a British citizen, to go and rescue these soldiers who were stranded. And I think that he was perfectly cast for that particular role.
The one scene that didn't make sense was after they pick up your guy, your Dr. Crane,
Cillian, Mr. Murphy,
is he's saying, we can't go there. If we go there, we'll die. And he, the gentleman says, oh, well, we'll just plot a new course then. And he took that step of, okay, I'll mislead you.
Yeah.
Because he never went back to there any other time in the movie, which didn't make any sense, that he was so hard driven, like, we're going to do this, but I'm just going to appease you for this 1 second until you fall asleep, and I'm just going to trick you. I don't know. That to me didn't seem to fit his character.
I thought it was very fitting. I thought that due to his situation, he has a British soldier that's on his boat. He's old, and he knows he cannot physically take out this guy, and that his son is too young. His son also would be overwhelmed. And so he's trying to find the path of least resistance. And so doing that allowed him to be able to move forward. And I found myself thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, yeah, if I was in his shoes, I'd do the same exact thing, because this is why I'm here. The very fact that he was rescued was because I felt compelled to go and rescue as many soldiers as I can. And just because this guy's on a boat now and he wants to turn around, I'm not turning around. I'm going to rescue as many as I can. And so, yeah, that was, I thought a lot of those confrontations was really well done. The acting in this film was unique in the sense that there really was not a lot of dialogue. And so a lot of it was just having to perform just a lot of the more of the facial expressions, working with a lot of more of the fragmented scripts of dialogue, that sort of thing. It was definitely something that, and again, that surprised me. I was expecting a lot of dialogue in this film, and there just really wasn't.
Right.
So
yeah, they plopped you in the movie without much story. Well, there really is no story. History is the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there wasn't, you got to sit in the front seat from every perspective, on land, on sea, and in the air. And so, yeah, and I thought, I'm okay with there not being too much dialogue. I don't want anybody grandstanding. I want to learn. I want to be there. I want this to be an experience. And yeah, there could have been more, but I thought what was said was good.
Yeah, moving into plot, just since we're kind of automatically segueing into that, one of the things I did appreciate about the film was the fact that Christopher Nolan took this multiple vantage point approach with all of the different characters, which I thought was pretty cool. I liked how you got to replay certain scenes that occurred throughout the film, but from just different vantage points of seeing, like, Tom Hardy shoot down a plane and he's flying over some sort of boat that looks sunk, and psychologically speaking, me as a viewer watching that, it's like, it looks like a fisherman's boat or whatever keeled over. That's too bad. I guess it's just one of the casualties of war, one of the broken eggs, so to speak, and then moving on. But then being introduced to the people who were on that boat later on, and seeing how the boat tips over and realizing, oh wow, we're seeing it from this angle now I had almost a guilty feeling as a viewer as to just how limited my emotional scope was, where like I was only concerned about Tom Hardy, but then seeing it from this other angle forced me into also really caring about the folks on that boat. And I think the approach to just like you said, because it's basically a story from history where everything is already kind of set up for you in terms of just the high level, what went on. It was really neat for Christopher Nolan to be able to go in and experiment with this notion that it's almost like there's this symbiotic relationship with cause and effect. And I thought that was a really refreshing take on a war period, a war period piece film. How about that? So I just really loved it. I mean, I loved how we saw the perspective of the pilots in the air and they're doing something. And then later on, like I said, you see it from more of the beach perspective. And then there's a perspective from a boat or a ship of some kind. Or you'd also see perspectives from the different officers as well. And so that was also really refreshing to just see this thing constantly going. And so it's almost as if fate, or not, maybe fate's the wrong word, but there just seems to be this kind of existential character that deals with cause and effect going on that is playing a role in this film overall. It was, I don't know. It was, I actually, that was probably one of the strongest parts of the entire film for me. One of the best components that was introduced to it, because they could have easily just started from point A to point B, and be able to say, oh, this is where it started, and then show everything happening at the same time all the way through. And I feel like in a way, it's almost kind of hearkening back to Christopher Nolan's older film.
Nice. Oh, that one. Yeah, I remember that one.
What was that one called?
What was it called, Russ?
I want to say Nemesis, but it's not. Memento.
Memento.
Memento was a film where if you guys haven't seen it, you definitely should. If you have not seen it, then you might want to skip over this one little part. But in Memento, it literally starts out in the middle and then works its way outward. So you're seeing what's going on more and more and more and more and more. And that was a really original way too, because then you kind of saw fragments at first, and then you got to see the whole picture toward the end of what was really going on and that sort of thing. And so I feel like while this was not an exact replica of that, I feel like there are echoes to kind of the approach of that, which is cool because it's kind of him returning back to his roots, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I appreciated the different perspectives. They could have cut majorly, cut back and forth, 3 seconds here, 2 seconds here. This is what happened here. This is what happened here, and they chose not to, and they chose to have a little bit longer sequences. And I felt as the viewer a little bit rewarded because, did that guy die or did he not die? Or what did he think? What did he say? If he did live. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I at times I thought, okay, they're probably not going to revisit what they just showed, from a different perspective. And then they did. And I thought, okay, cool. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I think one of the more powerful scenes of all of the sequences there from beginning to end is towards the end, pretty much when Tom Hardy's plane runs out of fuel. And he you kind of already know that's going to happen. And I think he, as a character, knew that was going to happen and he was preparing for it. As you always see him, edging the throttle, up, down, up, down, up, down, trying to make the most of. Well,
there's a moment where you could tell he was contemplating, should he turn around and go back or just keep going?
Yeah. Did you save lives on the beach or do you save lives in the water? Either way, you're saving lives. So, in either way, you only got an hour's worth of fuel and make the best of it.
I loved it when he had to use chalk on the cockpit.
Yeah.
Because his fuel gauge got shot. And
you're doing the mathematical equations and everything. Okay, I got so much time left. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But when his plane finally ran out of gas and his engine choked to quit, and you're thinking, oh man, that's it. That's it. you got to land somewhere, and you see the silent plane, and you can tell the propeller's not moving.
Yeah.
And everyone's thinking the same thing. That's one of our boys, and that's a Spitfire. That's an awesome machine, and it's going to wreck or it's going to crash somewhere, you know. And this is the guy who was looking out for us in the air. He's our eyes in the sky, and he knew this was a one-way ticket, and he's going to die. You know, of course, we don't know if he died or not, but that to me really kind of started to grip my heart and my breathing at the same time, thinking, "Oh man, is he going to make it? Like, how is he going to land?" Man, so.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes as well, especially when he was trying to get the landing gear to come out and it wasn't coming out. It actually reminded me of Memphis Belle.
A little bit.
Where, like, remember they were trying to get that tire down off the B-52 bomber? And
yeah.
So...
One sequence I thought they wouldn't... I thought it was just me looking at the detail, but when they bombed that ship and the ship starts to keel over... and
capsizing,
yeah. And I thought I saw oil in the water. I'm thinking, and I thought, is that just me, or do they mean to do that? I mean, they're probably, the thing got bombed, so obviously the oil is going to escape into the water, but that's not going to be good if anything ignites it.
Yeah.
And then they didn't go back to it, and I thought, okay, well, look at me. Look at me know the details. I'm Mr. Detailed. And then they went to this perspective, and I thought, oh, snap.
Yeah.
Like, this is... We're right back into it, and now it's the danger zone.
Yeah.
No pun intended. So yeah, that was pretty neat.
Yeah, there were several intense scenes in there, and I think I'm still trying to figure out like the best way to describe it, but it goes hand in hand with the fact that there really was not a whole lot of dialogue. It was more just, I guess, like perhaps the cinematography itself, which we'll talk about later, but just the scope of the film, just having almost like just the visuals tell the story for you. So you could feel the wind on your face on the beach, or you can smell just the oil in the water or whatever it is. Like there it was, a lot of it was just
or
almost
even taste the water as you're trying to get knocked back into it from another boat that's sinking, nearly drowning.
And I think that's what it had, just that raw tangibility to it that, when you look at the grand scheme of the film was actually quite small. It was not some sort of grandiose, huge film.
Right.
But at the same time, it doesn't take away from just all the different intense scenes. And, another intense scene was when you had those British soldiers trying to get that one boat that had beached, and all of a sudden, like, they realized that one of the German soldiers was using it as target practice, and just the sound on that in the IMAX theater really just caused me to jump every time that happened, and just thinking about how any one of them can get shot, even though the person who's just biding his time or whatever doesn't even realize that there are soldiers in there. There were a lot of scenes like that in the film that were just super intense, and you're just thinking, my gosh, this is all I could think of in my head was just war is hell.
Yeah. Even on the nice beaches of Dunkirk.
Yeah.
War is still hell. I didn't think at some point I thought, okay, yeah, they're using it for target practice, and I could see, the tight grouping of the bullet holes, and plus the characters did mention that it was target practice, but at the same time, they started like blowing that thing up. It was pow, 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 pow. I'm thinking, okay, did someone notice something or hear something that's happening on the ship? Because they're starting to blow the crap out of this.
Well, and I think that's what one of the things, like, once again, going back to Christopher Nolan's approach, he's not doing a point A to point B type film. It's very open to interpretation as to how you could take it. Maybe they just started shooting more and more at it because it was more fun.
Yeah.
Maybe they did see or hear someone. Once again, it's just up to the viewer as to what you want to kind of approach that particular scene as. But another scene too that I thought was just tremendous was the opening scene, where you have just those soldier boys walking down a war-torn street, and they're just looking for food or whatever, and then all of a sudden they start getting shot at, and suddenly there's only one person left out of this group of boys who we just met. And I felt terrible for him just watching him just get mowed down one by one like that. And it really plays into just the detachment that you have to put yourself in that type of situation, because you're losing friends left and right.
Yeah.
How do you cope with that? How do you move on? And also just how do you not let go of the value of life?
Right. Yeah, no, I detached is a good word, because I was watching his eyes and his facial expressions to see, if he was going to break down and cry, or he was just going to act terrified, or just start shaking or something. And detached was actually what he felt, because he was with a group of, either his convoy or his friends or whatever, and all of a sudden they all die. He's in the living one, and he just kept on walking to the beach as if not like tra-la-la, nothing ever happened, but at the same time, just, okay, I made it, they didn't, and I'm going to try and survive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
detached survival.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody was in survival mode, you could tell.
At the same time, they were still trying to be organized and be gentlemen. I mean, nobody panicked.
Nobody panicked, and I think that is one of the biggest things about the military is when you're under stress or duress and people are pushed to the brink, there is that survival mode, that primal mode that takes over. And I think they did a nice job of demonstrating in the film how they had just enough stuff to do. Like, you had their commanding officers who were having them build makeshift docks using old vehicles and boxes and that sort of thing, or being able to line up in these different formations along the beach, standing even in the water, regardless of the fact that there were no boats ready yet. It's those types of exercises that you have to do to keep yourself from going insane and having absolute chaos, because everybody deep down inside is absolutely terrified and they want to get home.
Everybody feels the same thing.
Yeah. And so it reminded me a lot of the stories I've seen, like on YouTube or other places, where you have veterans talk about how the training kicks in, how like there are moments where you are absolutely terrified, and the only thing that keeps you glued on, so to speak, is just the training that you've received. So you did see that a lot in this film as well, but yeah, there was a lot of dread, wasn't there?
There was a lot of dread, and there's no safe spaces. I mean, where do you go? You've been driven to the beach. You can't go back in and hide in a building. I mean, you could, but you got the rest of the German army there waiting to cap you.
Right.
Okay, the boat's going to take you home, but that's what all the airplanes are targeting. First and foremost is the boats, and then any ammunition they have left over, they'll mow you down on the beach.
Yeah.
I mean, are you going to dig yourself a little hole, and hide in there because the boats might leave, and then you didn't notice it because you were hiding out in your hole? Where do you go?
Yeah.
Where do you go? So, I mean, best to just wait your turn and hope for the best, I guess.
There's another part from the beginning. If you recall, that same character who survived, at first he was squatting down to go to the bathroom, and he wasn't able to do that. And then when he survives, it's just so funny how like he goes back to trying to find a place to go to the bathroom again. Like, I was thinking to myself, man, I probably would have crapped my pants.
Yeah.
I wouldn't need to go to the bathroom after being shot at like that.
Yeah.
Another part of the film that I thought was very poignant was the character. I think his name was Charles, right? The boy who joined the other civilians on the boat.
I can look it up.
Anyway, it's the boy who joined them and ultimately paid the price for it. And the scene with him getting knocked down the stairs on the boat due to the British soldier wanting to turn the boat around, and him hitting his head on I think it was like
George,
that's right. That was just a really heavy, touching scene, because here was this 17-year-old teenager who lost his life because he wanted to be a part of the movement to try and bring the soldiers home. And unfortunately there are real world situations that occur like that are sad and ugly and just regrettable.
Claim the innocent.
Yeah, absolutely. But just that whole sequence where like you find out that he's blind and then he didn't make it and whatnot. And yeah, just that whole situation as well, I thought was it was a necessary component to the overall plot, even though it was just a small component. But still, it's like they could have easily just ignored those types of situations. But so I'm glad that they decided to show that. Also, too, when the soldiers made it back, I loved the scene with the blind man giving out blankets. And how I was making the same assumption as some of the soldiers were, which was just he just didn't want to look at them. He was just doing things because he thought that they were failures when in fact he was actually just blind.
Right.
But I also appreciated the fact that all of the older citizens were stepping up.
Right.
And we're being the cheerleaders for these soldiers coming back and being able to try and pacify them, being able to give them food and drink and clothes, blankets, that sort of thing.
That scene also, one of the soldiers mentions that as he's being handed a blanket and saying, good job, welcome home. He says, good job. All we did was survive. He goes, that's enough. Mm-hmm. Thinking, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You did your job for sure. And you survived. You came back and tell the tale.
There was another line too when the pilot.
Yep.
Someone was talking to him and gave him some sort of guilt trip about something.
Like, where were you guys? Where's the bloody Air Force?
Yeah, and then the older gentleman who saved him on the boat. I can't remember what he said.
He says, these men know where you were.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, I really did appreciate those sequences as well.
Yeah, the dialogue, like we've been talking about, the little dialogue that they gave us just gave a lot of insight into the times and the life and the circumstances. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily story, but all the circumstances.
Yeah.
And going back to, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Going back to the whole boat scene with George being knocked down, accidentally losing his life. The boy, I can't think of his name. I'm sorry. The boy in the red sweater.
The son of the captain or whatever.
Of the boat, boat captain. He had to make a bunch of decisions too at his young age, going, okay, my brother is dead.
I don't think that was his brother. I think that was his friend.
Or maybe, I think, his friend. My friend's dead, and obviously it was an accident. Fighting and cussing at the soldier who was panicking, basically, because he was shell shocked. He's been through everything. He didn't mean to kill him.
Right.
He just wants to see everybody safe and go home. He wants to go home.
Yeah.
And that whole thing where he was deciding after being asked, is the boy okay? Mm-hmm. He's like, no, you can tell in his face, no, he's dead. You killed him.
Right.
But he thought, what good is that going to do right now? What good is that going to do?
Yeah. Cinematography. So this film actually had quite a few great framed shots. I absolutely loved some of the scenes where the boat was capsizing and the camera was attached in such a way where you're seeing these kind of almost abstract angles of the water enveloping and gulping up the ship and then the hapless crew.
Instead of the water being horizontal, it looks like it's coming at you vertical, like a big wall of water.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was super cool. A lot of the plane sequences I thought were good. I think that they could have probably done more with that. But the scenes that were there, it's like, okay, yeah, that was cool. Definitely loved the sequence of the plane landing on the water. I thought that was pretty cool. Just they spent a lot of time with the more of the environments.
True.
And you can tell whether they were on the Dunkirk beach and it had a lot of that, I don't know what it was, but excuse me, I think I'm going to sneeze.
I'm waiting for it. Oh yeah.
Woo, excuse me.
It.
I'll blow my nose after that one.
Nice. Don't get any on your microphone, Russ. Oh, blow it out. One more. I can breathe. It's a miracle.
I'm trying to kind of sneezed out my idea. What was my thought? So they had that weird frothy algae. I don't know what it was, but it was all over the beach. And it was cool how they used that as a bit of a inspiration for the framing of some of the shots. And it was very artistic, I thought. Also just that was the thing. It was very much a minimalist movie. You know, when I think about whether it was just the dialogue or the locales, I mean, basically the whole film took place either on a beach or over the ocean.
Right.
I mean, both of those places are extremely minimalistic. There is not a whole lot there to work with. But that's okay. I mean, that's not a bad thing. It was definitely a conscious decision made. And as a result, you're just forced to, it brings to the forefront even more just the tragedy at hand. You know, you don't have time to drink in all of these different, background action or whatever else is going on. I mean, you're literally just, wow. Yeah. And that's another thing too. It was beach, the ocean, and the sky.
True.
And even the sky was like basically clear sky.
Yeah.
So very stark canvas to work on.
Yeah. That was a neat angle when, those two 20-year-old soldiers who were trying desperately to get off kind of sneaky onto a boat and being tossed back to the beach. They finally are able to get onto one of the rescue cruisers, and they're eating pizza. You know, even though it's greasy pizza, it doesn't even matter, man. They're just shoving that in their mouth, and he's looking all around, and he is questioned, like, "What are you doing? You're safe. Why are you so nervous?" Mm-hmm. And he's saying, "In case we get hit, I want to know where the exits are, or how to get out."
Talk about just
learning a few lessons really quick, in your face style. And then they did get hit, and when the boat is starting to sink, and everyone's drowning in this cafeteria inside, just packed in there like sardines too.
Yeah.
They could see the light from that door that was open, and he thought, okay, that's where I'm going. And he was the first and one of the only to get out. Yeah,
and that, you're right. That was a great, just seeing cinematography speaking, or just from a cinematography standpoint, just seeing how like there's just this dark everywhere. This darkness is just shrouding everybody, and you just get this sense of desperation because you're trapped underwater, and all of a sudden that door opens and it's just that one light that just gives you enough there to work with. I also like too, there was another scene in the other boat that the German soldiers were shooting at, and it was where the French soldier drowned. That was also really well lit and framed in terms of the French soldier trying to get to the ladder, and he couldn't. I think his jacket or something was stuck on something. And just the fact that you could no longer see his face. Like at first you saw his face and his hands, and he's trying to reach for the ladder and he couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden he's getting pulled back, sucked back probably due to the water and stuff. And you see only his hand that's reaching out for it through the darkness at the ladder. And that was very creepy, but still at the same time, a great idea.
Yeah. And a lot of this film altogether, they try and make this really pretty picture, regardless of the intensity of the story or what they want to depict. But at the same time, they didn't try and confuse anything or distract you from, anything being too lush. Anything, or the color or the story or anything like that. There wasn't anything intruding in it. It was very pinpointed to this one event in history. Mm-hmm. So they didn't want you to be distracted of the nice colors or the CGI or even like partially the music. We're going to get to that in a little bit, but they really wanted you focused on and pinpoint focused.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of a trip at the end when you actually got to see parts of Great Britain again, and seeing just a place that largely was untouched by war, because you're just that is always a mark of a good war film. I had the same sensation when I was watching Band of Brothers. You know, there'd be times when they'd be on leave and they'd go back somewhere, and then you'd have a little oasis of R&R.
Home, yeah.
And then you go back to the hell at hand.
Yep.
Or in Saving Private Ryan, that same kind of thing, where like you're seeing the person at the cemetery, and it just you're thinking, oh, okay, not a big deal. And then you go there and you're like, wow, that is crazy.
Yeah.
So moving on to the soundtrack here. The soundtrack, for me, I did not care for the soundtrack. I think that it was screaming too much for attention. And I understand that they were wanting to have it intensified, like the different scenes that we were checking out. But I just felt like it was just too loud. It was too much where like I even had difficulty understanding what some of the actors were saying. And as we talked about already, the dialogue is few and far between. So I'm trying to latch on to anything someone is saying in terms of exposition. And I had some difficulty with that. And even though the soundtrack itself was intense, like it definitely just brought to the forefront more of that sense of dread, that sense of hopelessness and threat and survival, that sort of thing. It just that there wasn't enough there to make it
memorable.
Yeah, memorable and coherent.
Yeah. I think the music went well with the sense of urgency. But I'm not going to go out and buy the soundtrack, nor I will remember anything, nor if I ever go to a Hans Zimmer concert.
Oh, as well you should.
I'm not going to notice, oh yeah, he's playing something from Dunkirk. I'm not. So at the same time, I was a bit at a loss because they go, oh, music by Hans Zimmer. And I thought, okay, great, we're going to get something good.
Yeah.
And then even though the music at the end was heartwarming, I can't even tell you how it goes.
Yeah.
I just felt like at the end it was time to let go and take a breath, and finally, this whole entire experience is over. But I don't see it winning any awards. I see it fitting the movie, but I don't see it winning any awards.
Yeah, perhaps when it comes out on Blu-ray, or I could watch it on Netflix or something like that, I'll be able to listen to it again. Because it could have just been the fact that IMAX was just so freaking loud.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. I mean, it was, I can't even like formulate a sentence with that. Yeah, I mean, everything was so loud. I mean, you're hearing all the gunfire, which was cool. I mean, it's going to be loud. Gunfire on those little puny airplanes that are made for lightweight, yet with some armor on them.
Yeah.
It's going to be loud. There's no insulation. So, you got to be slapped in the face with it. Like, yeah, oh my gosh, I'm gonna blow my eardrums. So that could have been just IMAX. I mean, if you saw it here, then it might be a whole different experience.
Sound effects get a straight A from me. I absolutely loved the sound effects in the film. The music, like I said, a little too abstract for me. I was hoping for something else a little differently. But like I said, the whole film was just very different from what I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
So
I like the sound for the most part. I did think they could have done a little bit better job. There seemed to be, and this could have been just IMAX too. I mean, I had to go back and listen to it on your home setup.
Yeah.
But, some of these big vessels have like this overwhelming hum to the motor, and I didn't get that at all, either inside the ship or outside the ship. Even the smaller boats, they have these little, regardless if they're diesel engines or petrol engines or whatever, they still have noise, and you don't really hear any of that at all. You just hear like the water wake slapping up against the hull, and that was about it. Also, the father figure in here mentions how the Spitfires have the Rolls-Royce engine in them, which was a phenomenal engine, still is to this day. And he says that's the best sound you're going to hear, especially out here. And I thought, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Let me hear those Rolls-Royce engines. And And anytime the same engine was in the P-51 Mustang on our side, and they sound amazing. They sound incredible, and I wanted to hear more of that, especially because they're in an actual Spitfire. This is not this is not CG.
Right.
So I wanted more. What they gave us was good, but not great.
One of the things that I forgot to touch on back in the plot segment was that I really did love the scene where you had all of the British civilians coming in with their boats, where they finally were able to get there and rescue the soldiers, and hearing the cheers from the British soldiers welcoming their fellow citizens there, just having that sense of unity. That was a much needed exhale for me personally in the theater.
I thought so too, but at the same time, I thought that they didn't show enough of it. It would have been neat if while the two boys and the gentleman started to sail off to Dunkirk, if they had some sort of communication with other people doing the same thing. Yeah. Maybe other people who had some war history to them. All we saw was just one boat, and then we heard the admiral say that the small craft dispatches have been sent out, and then we saw all the boats come in all of a sudden. And even though it was nice to see them, I wanted to see more of that. Happen in the beginning and in the middle and in the end. All of a sudden we just got this flood of small craft, and we're like, oh, well, everybody just showed up out of the fog, I guess.
Going on to costume design, what did you think of the costumes in the film?
I thought they were period correct. Yeah, I mean they didn't. Nothing really stuck out to me. Actually, you know what? I take that back. I take that back, Rosa. The pilot at the end. Well, not on this. The second pilot, who lived,
the one who survived.
The one who survived. Yeah. He was in some sort of suit. I didn't think the pilots were. What do I know?
That was surprising.
I did take note of it. I mean, he looked great, but and I don't know anything about the pilot's attire of the time period. But I thought, okay, Tom Hardy, I don't think was wearing that. Maybe he was.
Well, you never saw because he still had his pilot jacket on.
Yeah, but I saw that the pilot, the blue jacket underneath the pilot's little leather jacket. So I mean, I knew he was in a tie. Within the cockpit.
Was he a French pilot? Because on the back of his wing, it looked like there was the French flag on the tail.
I don't recall. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly. Oh, I mean, obviously he spoke English, but yeah. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. But yeah, I did key on that as well. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. I don't know if that was kind of part of the military attire, or if that was just like his lucky jacket or something. I don't know.
Yeah. What was pretty neat, going with just sidetracking here with him, is when he knew he was going to put the plane in the water. He obviously his plane's not made to land on the water, so he's going to have to try his best to make this as smooth a landing as possible.
Right.
And though it was rough, I thought, you know what, he probably did land that plane that way. He did seem to be a very experienced, knowledgeable pilot, and that he kept the plane afloat for as long as he could while that latch was, stuck. I thought, I don't know if that latch would have been stuck. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. But
hey, maybe that was actually a story that was told to
possibly
Mr. Nolan by someone who fought during that war.
Possibly.
I mean, like I said, back in the day, those planes were primitive. They did not have the type of technology or user experience in place that we have today.
Yeah.
So those types of things failed all the time.
Yeah. But even he didn't panic at that time. He was thinking like, oh crap, I thought, okay, let me think about what other actor or war film scenario this would have happened, and the guy would have been going, F that. No, not necessarily F this, but I mean, he would be screaming all on top of his lungs and panicking and trying to break open the glass.
Mother trucker.
Yeah. And this guy would just definitely kept his cool and thought, if this is where I'm going to die, I've perfectly accepted this, but it sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't want to die, but he just didn't use minced, butchered language, panic language in that situation. I was kind of grateful for that.
So overall, how many stars would you give Dunkirk?
Man, I'm torn. I did want more out of the film. I am going to buy the film, and I will buy the film in the highest resolution I can and with as many special features as I can.
Yeah.
But it's not up there with Saving Private Ryan. It's not.
No.
I didn't love it. I definitely liked it.
Yeah.
I liked it a lot, but I didn't love it. So I'm torn between 3 3/4 and a 4.
Yeah, I would give it 3.5 stars.
Yeah.
That's where I will give Dunkirk. Just because, like you, I enjoyed the film. I didn't find anything like terribly wrong with it.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like it's one of the stronger Christopher Nolan efforts.
Yeah.
Having said that, it's definitely one of his most original. Every film that he does is completely original.
Yeah.
And so that plays well to that. And like I said earlier, I really did appreciate the starkness of the film, where you, once again, you literally had the set of either a beach or the ocean or the sky.
Yeah.
And then that combined with a very limited amount of dialogue forced just the situation at hand to be at the forefront and act almost as a character unto itself, where it's almost like an interpretive film.
Yeah.
So definitely glad I went to go see it. Probably it won't be one of those films that I watch over and over and over just because it's intense.
Yeah.
It's definitely an intense film, and I would definitely encourage those of you who are interested to go check it out. If you have an IMAX theater, I think that is probably the way to go see it, because it's pretty crazy.
It's worth the drive, even if it's a little bit further away from y'all. It's worth the drive. I do think Christopher Nolan should get nominated at least for direction on the film. I think he did it, dude. As far as everything we've been talking about, the movie did leave us with thoughts and emotions, and I don't know. I think he did take a lot of risk.
Yeah.
And making it this way, and I think that should be rewarded.
Well, that about does it for this particular episode. We definitely would love to hear what you guys have to say about Dunkirk. So if you have any questions, comments, or just want to leave us some Dunkirk love, you can find us on Twitter at Joygasm TV and Facebook.com/Joygasm TV. You can also listen to us on SoundCloud at SoundCloud.com/Joygasm TV, or search Joygasm TV on YouTube. And I promise that the next episode, we will not be as sober. I think both Steve and I are actually kind of shell-shocked from the film. So our energy level is cut down a few notches, which, I mean, that is the result of, an impactful film in that regard. So,
hey, when you see something like, Guardians of the Galaxy or Spider-Man, then it's going to reflect that. But if you see Dunkirk,
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess we'll catch you next time. Farewell.